The morning started like any other Tuesday for 6-year-old Maya. She woke up in the small apartment she shared with her parents and two younger brothers, brushed her teeth with a toothbrush that had seen better days, and put on her favorite, purple dress, the one with tiny flowers that her mother had bought from a thrift store months ago. But something felt different that day. Her parents were whispering in the kitchen, and when she walked in, they suddenly stopped talking. Her father was holding a piece of paper, and her mother's eyes looked red and puffy. Maya didn't understand what was happening, but the air in the room felt heavy like right before a thunderstorm. "Maya, sweetheart," her mother said, kneeling down to her level. "We need to go visit Grandma Rose today." Maya's face lit up. She loved visiting her grandmother, who always smelled like vanilla cookies and told the most amazing stories about when she was young. Grandma Rose lived in a small apartment across town, and visiting her was always a treat. They packed a small bag with some of Maya's clothes, which seemed strange since they usually just visited for the day. When Maya asked why she needed clothes, her mother just said they might stay overnight. The 6-year-old didn't think much of it. Sleepovers at Grandma's were fun. The bus ride to her grandmother's neighborhood took almost an hour. Maya pressed her face against the window, watching the city change from their familiar streets to areas she didn't recognize. Her little brothers, Tommy and Jake, were unusually quiet, and her parents barely spoke during the entire journey. When they arrived at the small building where Grandma Rose lived, Maya noticed her father carrying not just her small bag, but also a larger suitcase. This was definitely more than an overnight visit. The building was old, with peeling paint on the walls and a funny smell in the hallway that Maya had never liked. Grandma Rose opened the door before they even knocked. She must have been watching from the window. Her wrinkled face showed a mixture of love and worry as she hugged Maya tight. The apartment was tiny, just one bedroom, a small living room, and a kitchen that was barely big enough for two people to stand in. "Grandma, are we having a sleepover party?" Maya asked excitedly, bouncing on her toes. Her grandmother looked at Maya's parents with an expression the little girl couldn't understand. There was a long silence that felt uncomfortable, like when the teacher asked a question in class and nobody knew the answer. Maya's mother sat down on the old couch and pulled her daughter close. Her hands were shaking slightly as she brushed Maya's dark hair away from her face. "Maya, honey, Mommy and Daddy have to go away for a while," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where are you going? Can I come too?" Maya asked, not understanding why her mother looked so sad. "We're going to find work in another state, far away. You're going to stay here with Grandma Rose, and we'll come back for you soon." The words hit Maya like cold water. Stay here? Without her parents? Without her brothers? She looked around the tiny apartment and then back at her family. "But I don't want to stay. I want to go with you," she said, her voice getting higher and more panicked. Her father, who had been standing quietly by the door, finally spoke up. "Maya, we can't take you right now. It's too hard with 3 kids, and we don't have enough money." "But Tommy and Jake are going with you," Maya said, pointing at her brothers who were still standing in the hallway. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Maya had ever heard. In that moment, even though she was only 6 years old, she understood something that would change her forever. Her parents were choosing her brothers over her. They were taking Tommy and Jake but leaving her behind. "It's just for a little while," her mother said, but her voice cracked as she said it. "We'll send for you when we get settled." Maya looked at her grandmother, who was wiping tears from her eyes with a tissue. Then she looked back at her parents, searching their faces for some sign that this was all a mistake, that they would change their minds. "How long is a little while?" Maya asked. "Maybe a few months," her father said, but he couldn't look at her when he said it. The next hour passed like a nightmare. Her parents unpacked her few belongings into the small closet in her grandmother's bedroom. Maya would be sleeping on a mattress on the floor next to her grandmother's bed. There was no space for a proper bed, no room for toys, no place that felt like it belonged to her. When it was time for her parents to leave, Maya clung to her mother's leg, begging them not to go. She promised she would be good, that she wouldn't ask for anything, that she would help with her brothers. But nothing she said changed their minds. "We love you, Maya," her mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Never forget that we love you." But if they loved her, Maya thought, why were they leaving her? She watched from the window as her family walked away, carrying their suitcases and holding her brother's hands. Tommy, who was 4, looked back at the building once, but Jake, who was only 2, didn't even understand what was happening. That night, Maya lay on the thin mattress next to her grandmother's bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the building. Pipes creaked, neighbors argued through thin walls, and somewhere a baby was crying. Everything smelled different here, old and musty instead of the familiar scent of home. "Grandma," Maya whispered in the darkness, "when are they coming back?" Her grandmother was quiet for a long time. "I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly don't know." And that was the beginning of Maya's new life. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Her grandmother, Rose, was 72 years old and worked at a small diner downtown, washing dishes and cleaning tables. She had to wake up at 5 in the morning and didn't get home until late at night. Maya learned to take care of herself quickly. She made her own breakfast, usually just cereal with milk if there was milk. Sometimes there wasn't. She walked herself to school, which was 8 blocks away, carrying the key to the apartment on a string around her neck that her grandmother had given her. At school, Maya watched other kids get picked up by their parents, hugged and asked about their day. She watched them complain about packed lunches their mothers had made, not knowing how lucky they were to have someone who cared, enough to pack them lunch at all. Maya usually ate the free lunch provided by the school for kids whose families didn't have much money. Sometimes she was still hungry afterward, but she learned not to complain. Complaining didn't change anything. The apartment was cold in the winter because her grandmother couldn't afford to keep the heat on all day. Maya learned to wear layers of clothes and to do her homework while sitting under blankets. When the electricity got turned off because they couldn't pay the bill, Maya did her homework by candlelight. But Maya was smart, smarter than most kids her age. While other children played games or watched TV, Maya buried herself in books from the school library. Reading was free, and in books, she could escape to places where families stayed together and children weren't left behind. Her teacher, Mrs. Peterson, noticed that Maya was different from the other kids. She was more serious, more independent, but also sadder. When Maya's report card came out, it was filled with A's. But Mrs. Peterson was more concerned about the little girl who seemed to carry the weight of the world on her small shoulders. "Maya, is everything okay at home?" Mrs. Peterson asked one day after class. Maya had learned by then not to tell people too much about her situation. Adults made promises they couldn't keep, just like her parents had. "Everything's fine," Maya said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But everything wasn't fine. At night, Maya would lie on her mattress and wonder what she had done wrong. Why were her brothers worth keeping, but she wasn't? She was the oldest. Shouldn't that make her more valuable, not less? Sometimes, she would hear her grandmother crying quietly in the kitchen after she thought Maya was asleep. Those were the nights when there wasn't enough money for food, when the rent was late, when the weight of taking care of a child at her age felt too heavy to bear. But her grandmother never complained to Maya. Rose would smile and make jokes, telling stories about her own childhood to distract from their current problems. She would save the last piece of bread for Maya, claiming she wasn't hungry even when Maya could hear her stomach growling. As months passed, Maya stopped asking when her parents were coming back. She stopped talking about Tommy and Jake. She stopped believing that this was temporary. Somewhere in her 6-year-old mind, she understood that she had been abandoned, even if she didn't have the words for it yet. Instead, she focused on the things she could control. She studied harder than any other kid in her class. She started helping neighbors with small tasks to earn quarters and dimes. She learned to cook simple meals so her grandmother wouldn't have to worry about dinner when she came home exhausted from work. The abandonment was changing Maya in ways that wouldn't become clear for years. It was teaching her that she couldn't depend on anyone, that love wasn't enough to keep people around, and that if she wanted something in life, she would have to fight for it herself. But it was also planting seeds of something else, a fierce determination, a refusal to be helpless, and a promise to herself that she would never again be in a position where someone else's choices could destroy her world. Every night, as she fell asleep on that thin mattress, Maya made the same silent promise. Someday, she would be strong enough that no one could ever leave her behind again. By the time Maya turned 13, she had learned to see the world differently than other kids her age. While her classmates worried about which clothes to wear or what movie to see on weekends, Maya was calculating how much groceries cost and whether her grandmother would have enough energy to work another double shift. The apartment they shared had become both a prison and a sanctuary. It was cramped and old, but it was theirs. Maya had memorized every creak in the floorboards, every stain on the ceiling, and every sound that meant trouble, like when the neighbor upstairs started yelling or when the landlord came knocking. For rent money they didn't have. Her grandmother Rose was getting older, and Maya could see it in the way she moved. Rose's hands shook more when she counted the tips from the diner, and she needed to sit down more often when she came home from work. The arthritis in her knees made climbing the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment a daily struggle. "Grandma, maybe you should ask for fewer hours at work," Maya suggested one evening as she watched Rose massage her swollen feet. "Can't do that, sweetheart," Rose replied with a tired smile. "We need every dollar we can get." That's when Maya made a decision that would change everything. She was going to start making money herself. It started small. Maya noticed that Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who lived 2 doors down, had trouble carrying her groceries up the stairs. Maya offered to help for $2 each time. Mrs. Chen was so grateful that she told her friend Mrs. Williams, who also needed help with shopping and cleaning. Soon, Maya had a little business going. She would rush home from school, drop off her backpack, and spend the next few hours helping elderly neighbors with tasks they couldn't manage alone. She carried groceries, cleaned apartments, organized medicine bottles, and even read newspapers aloud to Mr. Rodriguez, who was losing his eyesight. The work was hard, but Maya discovered something amazing. She was good at it. She had a natural ability to understand what people needed, even when they didn't ask for help directly. She noticed when Mrs. Chen's apartment was too cold and suggested they call the landlord. She saw when Mrs. Williams was confused about her medicine schedule and helped organize it in a way that made sense. Every dollar Maya earned went into a coffee tin she kept hidden under her mattress. She told her grandmother it was for school supplies, but really, she was saving for something bigger. She didn't know what yet, but she knew that money meant choices, and choices meant never being helpless again. At school, Maya's teachers started noticing something special about her. She wasn't just smart. Lots of kids were smart. Maya had a way of solving problems that other students couldn't even see. In math class, while other kids struggled with basic equations, Maya was asking questions about advanced concepts she had taught herself from library books. Her science teacher, Mr. Thompson, pulled her aside one day after class. "Maya, have you ever thought about entering the state science fair?" he asked. Maya looked at him like he was crazy. "Science fairs are for kids whose parents can buy them fancy equipment and drive them to competitions." "Not necessarily, Mr. A," Thompson said. "The best science projects come from observing real problems and finding simple solutions. You're better at that than anyone in this school." That conversation planted a seed in Maya's mind. She started paying attention to the problems around her in a different way. Why did her grandmother have trouble remembering which medicines to take? Why did the elderly people she helped get confused about their doctor appointments? Why was it so hard for them to stay connected with their families? Maya's first real breakthrough came when she was 14. Mrs. Chen had missed an important doctor's appointment because she forgot about it, and her daughter who lived across town was angry and worried. Maya watched Mrs. Chen cry as she tried to explain what happened over the phone. There has to be a better way, Maya thought. She spent weeks at the public library, reading everything she could find about computer programming. The library had old computers that were slow and frustrating to use, but they were free. Maya taught herself basic coding by following online tutorials and checking out programming books that were way too advanced for someone her age. Her first project was simple, a basic computer program that could remind people about appointments and medicines. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. She tested it with Mrs. Chen, who was amazed that this teenage girl had created something on a computer that could help solve her problems. Word spread among the elderly residents in their building. Soon, Maya was not just helping with groceries and cleaning. She was solving problems with technology. She figured out how to set up email accounts so grandparents could see photos of their grandchildren. She taught people how to video call their families who lived far away. But Maya's biggest challenge came when she was 15. Her grandmother, Rose, collapsed at work one day and was rushed to the hospital. Maya got the call at school and ran the 10 blocks to the hospital, her heart pounding with fear that she was about to lose the only person who had ever stayed in her life. Rose had suffered a mild heart attack. The doctor said she would be okay, but she needed to rest and reduce her stress. She couldn't work at the diner anymore. The long hours and physical demands were too much for her aging body. Sitting in that hospital room, watching her grandmother sleep with wires and tubes connected to her frail body, Maya felt the same helplessness she had experienced when her parents left. But this time, she wasn't 6 years old. This time she had skills and determination and a coffee tin full of savings. "I'm going to take care of us now, Grandma," Maya whispered, holding Rose's wrinkled hand. Over the next few months, Maya's life changed completely. She took on more work helping neighbors, but she also started thinking bigger. She expanded her technology services, helping people set up simple computer systems to manage their lives better. She charged small fees for her services, nothing that would hurt people who didn't have much money, but enough to help pay for groceries and rent. Maya's grades never suffered, even though she was working more hours than most adults. She had learned to manage her time perfectly, doing homework in between client visits and studying late into the night after her grandmother was asleep. Her teachers were amazed by her ability to balance everything, but Maya knew it wasn't really a choice. Failure wasn't an option when people were depending on her. When Maya turned 16, she made a discovery that would change her life forever. While helping Mr. Rodriguez organize his medicines, she realized that many elderly people were making dangerous mistakes with their prescriptions. They would forget to take important medicines, take too much of others, or mix medicines that shouldn't be taken together. This isn't just a problem in our building, Maya thought. This is happening everywhere. She started researching the issue and was shocked by what she found. Thousands of elderly people were ending up in hospitals every year because of medicine mistakes. Many of them died from problems that could have been prevented with better organization and reminders. Maya knew she had found her purpose. She spent the rest of her junior year in high school developing a more sophisticated computer program, one that could track multiple medicines, send reminders, and even alert family members if something seemed wrong. She tested it with all the elderly people she helped, making improvements based on their feedback. The program worked better than she had hoped. Mrs. Chen stopped missing her medicines. Mr. Rodriguez's daughter, who lived in another state, could now check on her father's health remotely. Mrs. Williams felt more confident about managing her complex medical routine. But Maya wanted to do more than just help a few neighbors. She wanted to help everyone who faced these problems. The question was, how could a 16-year-old girl from a tiny apartment in Queens change the world? The answer came from an unexpected source. Maya's computer science teacher, Ms. Davis, had been watching Maya's work with amazement. She encouraged Maya to apply for a full scholarship to study computer science at the state university. "Maya, you have a gift," Ms. Davis said. "But more than that, you have experience solving real problems for real people. That's what the best programmers do." Maya was terrified of leaving her grandmother, but Rose insisted she apply for the scholarship. "You can't take care of me forever by staying small," Rose said. "Go learn how to take care of everyone." When Maya's acceptance letter arrived with a full scholarship offer, she cried for the first time in years. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of possibility. Standing in that tiny apartment where she had learned to be strong, holding the letter that represented her future, Maya made a promise to herself and to her grandmother. She would use her education to build something bigger than anyone thought possible. She would create technology that would help millions of people like Rose, people who deserved to live with dignity and support, regardless of their age or situation. The little girl who had been abandoned at 6 was about to become a young woman with the power to change the world. Maya's first day at university felt like stepping into another world. The campus was huge, with buildings that looked like palaces compared to the small apartment she had called home for 12 years. Students walked around with expensive laptops, designer clothes, and the kind of confidence that came from never worrying about where your next meal would come from. Maya carried everything she owned in 2 old suitcases and a backpack that had seen better days. Her grandmother Rose had insisted on coming with her to move into the dorm, even though the bus fare was money they couldn't really afford to spend. "I want to see where my brilliant granddaughter is going to change the world," Rose had said, tears in her eyes as they hugged goodbye. The dorm room was small, but to Maya it felt like a luxury hotel. She had her own bed, her own desk, and reliable internet for the first time in her life. Her roommate, Jessica, seemed nice enough, but Maya could tell within minutes that they came from completely different worlds. Oh my God, I can't believe. My parents only gave me $500 for textbooks this semester, Jessica complained while unpacking designer clothes from expensive suitcases. How am I supposed to afford everything I need? Maya said nothing. She had exactly $200 to her name for the entire semester, and that had to cover textbooks, food, and any emergencies that might come up. She had already decided. She would buy used books, eat mostly cheap food from the cafeteria, and work part-time to make ends meet. The computer science program was challenging, but Maya loved every minute of it. She was finally learning the advanced programming concepts she had taught herself from library books, but now she had proper guidance and access to powerful computers. While other students struggled with basic coding assignments, Maya was already thinking about complex problems and innovative solutions. Her professors noticed her unusual perspective right away. In a class discussion about software design, while other students talked about creating apps for entertainment or social media, Maya presented ideas for helping elderly people manage their health and stay connected with their families. That's an interesting focus, Professor Williams said after class. Most students your age don't think much about the challenges facing older adults. I've seen those challenges up close, Maya replied simply, but college wasn't just about learning. Maya also had to survive financially. She got a job at the campus computer help desk, fixing students' laptops and helping them with basic technical problems. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her fed and allow her to send a little money home to her grandmother. Late at night, when her roommate was out partying with friends, Maya worked on her real passion project. She was developing a more advanced version of the medicine management program she had created in high school. But this time, she wanted to make it work on smartphones so more people could use it. The project consumed her. Maya would code until 3 in the morning, sleep for a few hours, attend classes all day, work at the help desk in the evening, and then start coding again. She lived on instant noodles and coffee, pushing herself harder than anyone should. Maya, you're going to burn yourself out, Jessica warned one night, watching her roommate hunched over her laptop for the 5th consecutive hour. I can't afford to burn out, Maya replied without looking up from her screen. Too many people are counting on this working. By her sophomore year, Maya had created something special. Her app, which she called Care Connect, could do everything. Her original program did, and much more. It reminded users to take their medicines, tracked their symptoms, allowed family members to check on them remotely, and could even detect patterns that might indicate health problems. Maya tested the app with elderly residents back in her old neighborhood during school breaks. The feedback was incredible. People loved how easy it was to use, and families felt more connected and less worried about their elderly relatives, but Maya knew that having a good app wasn't enough. She needed to find a way to get it to the millions of people who could benefit from it. That meant finding investors and scaling up the technology, things she knew nothing about. Her computer science professor, Dr. Martinez, saw the potential in Maya's work and encouraged her to enter a university startup competition. Maya, what you've built could help millions of people, Dr. Martinez said, but you need to think bigger. You need to turn this into a real business. The startup competition was intimidating. Maya found herself presenting alongside students who had been preparing for months, some with family connections to successful businesses, and others with expensive market research backing their ideas. Maya had her laptop, her app, and stories about real people whose lives had been improved by her technology. When it was her turn to present, Maya's hands shook as she connected her laptop to the projector. She looked out at the audience of judges, professors, and fellow students, many of whom looked skeptical that this quiet girl from Queens had anything important to say. "My name is Maya, and I want to tell you about my grandmother Rose," she began. For the next 10 minutes, Maya told her story. She talked about watching elderly people struggle with medicine management, about families who worried constantly about their aging relatives, and about the technology she had built to solve these real problems. She demonstrated the app live, showing how simple it was to use and how it could potentially save lives. When she finished, the room was completely silent. Then, slowly, the applause began. Maya won the competition and the $25,000 prize that came with it. More importantly, she caught the attention of several investors who wanted to learn more about her technology. But Maya's biggest breakthrough came during her junior year, when tragedy struck again. Her grandmother Rose was hospitalized after falling in their apartment. Maya rushed home from school, terrified that she was going to lose the most important person in her life. At the hospital, Maya met Dr. Patricia Johnson, a geriatrician who had been treating her grandmother. Dr. Johnson was impressed by how well organized Rose's medical information was, thanks to Maya's app. "I wish all my patients had this kind of systematic health tracking," Dr. Johnson said. "Do you realize how many problems this could prevent?" That conversation changed everything for Maya. Dr. Johnson introduced her to other doctors and healthcare professionals who were struggling with the same issues. They all saw the potential in Care Connect, but they also helped Maya understand how to make it even better. With their guidance, Maya spent the rest of her junior year refining the app. She added features that doctors requested, improved the user interface based on feedback from elderly users, and created systems that could integrate with hospital databases. By the time Maya was ready to graduate, Care Connect had evolved into something much bigger than a simple medicine reminder app. It was a comprehensive health management platform that connected patients, families, and healthcare providers in ways that had never been possible before. Maya's senior project presentation drew the largest audience in the computer science department's history. She demonstrated how Care Connect could track a patient's vital signs, remind them about appointments and medicines, alert family members to potential problems, and provide doctors with detailed health data that could improve treatment decisions. "This isn't just an app," Maya explained to the packed auditorium. "This is a new way of thinking about healthcare for our aging population." In the audience that day was Elena Rodriguez, a successful entrepreneur and investor who specialized in healthcare technology companies. Elena had built and sold 3 companies and was known for spotting promising startups early in their development. After Maya's presentation, Elena approached her with an offer that would change her life. "Maya, I've been investing in healthcare technology for 15 years, and I've never seen anything with this much potential," Elena said. "Would you be interested in discussing funding to turn Care Connect into a real company?" Maya stared at this successful businesswoman who was offering to invest in her dream. Part of her couldn't believe it was real. The little girl who had been abandoned, who had grown up in a tiny apartment with barely enough money for food, was being offered the chance to build something that could help millions of people. "How much funding are we talking about?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'd like to start with $500,000, Elena replied. "But if Care Connect performs the way I think it will, that's just the beginning." Maya thought about her grandmother Rose, lying in a hospital bed hooked up to machines. She thought about Mrs. Chen and Mr. Rodriguez and all the elderly people she had helped over the years. She thought about the millions of families who worried about their aging relatives and the healthcare system that struggled to provide proper care for everyone who needed it. "I'm interested," Maya said, "but I have one condition. My grandmother has to be involved in testing everything we develop. Real users, real problems, real solutions." Elena smiled. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to make this company successful." As Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma a few weeks later, she carried with her not just a computer science degree, but a vision for the future. She was about to embark on a journey that would transform her from a college graduate with big dreams into the founder of a technology company that would revolutionize healthcare for millions of people. The girl who had started by helping a few neighbors was about to help the entire world. Maya's first office was nothing like the tech company headquarters you see in movies. It was a cramped space above a pizza shop in downtown Portland, with fluorescent lights that flickered and air conditioning that barely worked. But to Maya, it felt like a palace because it was hers. With Elena's $500,000 investment, Maya hired her first 3 employees. There was David, a brilliant programmer who had graduated from MIT, but chose to work for Maya because he believed in her vision. Then came Lisa, a user experience designer who understood how to make technology simple for elderly users. Finally, there was Carlos, a former nurse who helped Maya understand the healthcare industry from the inside. They all worked around one big table that Maya had bought used from a furniture store that was going out of business. The office had no fancy conference rooms or expensive coffee machines. Instead, they had determination, shared pizza for lunch most days, and a mission that got them all out of bed every morning excited to work. Maya's first major challenge came when she realized that having a great app was only half the battle. Getting people to actually use CareConnect required convincing doctors, hospitals, and insurance companies that her technology was worth investing in. These were powerful organizations that had been doing things the same way for decades. "Maya, you're asking us to trust a startup run by a 22-year-old, said Dr. Robert Kim during one of her first sales meetings with a major hospital system. "Why should we risk our patients' health on unproven technology?" Maya had learned not to get discouraged by these kinds of comments. Instead, she pulled out her laptop and showed Dr. Kim the real data from CareConnect users. "In the past 6 months, our app has prevented over 300 medicine errors," Maya explained. "Our users have had 30% fewer emergency room visits compared to similar patients not using our system. This isn't about trusting me. This is about trusting the results." The data was impressive, but Maya knew she needed more than numbers to convince skeptical healthcare professionals. She needed stories. That's when Maya came up with an idea that would change everything. She organized what she called Family Connection Days, events where healthcare professionals could meet real families who had been helped by CareConnect. At the first event, Maya invited Mrs. Chen, who was now 85 and still living independently, thanks to the app. Mrs. Chen's daughter, who lived across the country, spoke about how CareConnect had given her peace of mind and allowed her mother to stay in her own home longer. "Before this app, I worried about my mother every single day," the daughter explained to the group of doctors and nurses. "Now I can check on her health remotely, and she feels more confident managing her medicines. This technology has given our family the gift of connection and safety." The healthcare professionals were moved by these real stories. Orders for CareConnect started coming in from hospitals and clinics across the country. Maya's team worked 18-hour days to keep up with demand, but they were all thrilled to see their hard work making a real difference in people's lives. By her 25th birthday, Maya's company had grown to 50 employees and was being used by over 200,000 people. But Maya wasn't satisfied yet. She could see even bigger possibilities for CareConnect. What if we could predict health problems before they happen? Maya asked her team during one of their weekly brainstorming sessions. What if the app could analyze patterns in someone's data and warn their doctor about potential issues? This led to Maya's next major innovation: artificial intelligence that could learn from user data and identify early warning signs of health problems. The technology was complex, but Maya's team found ways to make it work seamlessly in the background while keeping the user experience simple. The AI features were a game changer. CareConnect began catching health problems days or even weeks before they would have been discovered otherwise. Heart conditions were identified early, medicine interactions were prevented, and countless emergency room visits were avoided. News of Maya's innovations spread throughout the healthcare industry. Major technology companies started reaching out, wanting to buy CareConnect or partner with Maya's team. She received offers that would have made her instantly wealthy, but Maya turned them all down. "This isn't about the money," Maya explained to Elena during one of their monthly investor meetings. "This is about building something that will help people for generations to come." Elena, who had become both Maya's business mentor and close friend, smiled at this response. "That's exactly why your company is going to be worth billions someday," she said. Elena was right. When Maya was 28, she made the decision to take CareConnect public. The initial public offering was one of the most successful healthcare technology launches in history. The company was valued at $3.2 billion, making Maya's stake worth over $1.6 billion. Maya became the youngest female billionaire in healthcare technology, but the money wasn't what excited her most. What thrilled Maya was that CareConnect was now being used by over 5 million people worldwide, and the technology was saving thousands of lives every year. The success brought media attention that Maya hadn't expected. Reporters wanted to know her story, how a girl from Queens had built a billion-dollar company. Maya was uncomfortable with the spotlight at first, but she realized it gave her a platform to talk about issues she cared about. She used her fame to launch the Rose Foundation, named after her grandmother who had passed away peacefully the previous year. The foundation provided free healthcare technology to underserved communities and funded college scholarships for students aging out of foster care. Every child deserves the chance to build their dreams, regardless of where they start in life, Maya said at the foundation's launch event. But Maya's greatest test came on a Tuesday morning when she was 31 years old. She was in her corner office reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant knocked on the door. "Maya, there's someone here to see you," the assistant said nervously. "She says she's your mother." Maya's heart stopped. She hadn't seen or heard from her parents in 25 years. She had no idea if they were even still alive. Part of her had always wondered if this day would come, but she had never prepared for how it would feel. The woman who walked into Maya's office looked older and smaller than Maya remembered. Her hair was gray now, and her clothes suggested she hadn't shared in Maya's financial success. She stood in the doorway looking nervous and ashamed. "Hello, Maya," her mother said quietly. "I know I have no right to be here." Maya stared at this woman who had given birth to her, raised her for 6 years, and then abandoned her without a word. Emotions flooded through her: anger, sadness, confusion, and something else she couldn't quite identify. "Why are you here?" Maya asked, keeping her voice steady and professional. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I saw you on the news. I've been following your success for years." I wanted to tell you how proud I am and how sorry I am for what we did to you." Maya listened as her mother explained the circumstances that had led to her abandonment. The family had been evicted from their apartment. Her father had lost his job. They had been sleeping in their car with 3 young children and didn't see any other options. "We thought it would just be temporary," her mother said. "We thought we'd get back on our feet and come get you." But weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. "We were too ashamed to face you after what we'd done." Maya's mother talked about the regret that had haunted her every day, about watching her daughter's success from a distance, and about the pride she felt mixed with the guilt she carried. When her mother finished speaking, Maya sat quietly for a long moment. She thought about the 6-year-old girl who had been left behind, about her grandmother Rose, who had sacrificed everything to raise her, and about the journey that had brought her to this moment. "I forgive you," Maya said finally. "Not because what you did was okay, but because carrying anger would only hurt me. You made a choice 25 years ago that changed my life forever. But I made choices too, and those choices led me here." Maya's mother broke down crying, asking if there was any way they could have a relationship now, if Maya could ever see her as family again. Maya looked at this woman with compassion, but also with clear boundaries. "The family I needed, I created for myself," she said gently. "My grandmother Rose was my family. My team that builds technology to help people is my family. The millions of users who trust our products are my family. You gave me life, and I'm grateful for that. But family is about who stays, not who shows up after the success." After her mother left, Maya sat in her office thinking about the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. She had transformed the pain of abandonment into a purpose that helped millions of people. She had built not just a company, but a legacy that would continue helping families stay connected and healthy for generations to come. Later that day, Maya called her entire team together for an impromptu meeting. Standing in front of the 100-plus employees who had helped build CareConnect into a global company, Maya felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Today reminded me why we do this work," she told them. "We're not just building technology. We're making sure that no elderly person has to face health challenges alone, that no family has to worry about losing touch with the people they love, and that everyone gets the care and support they deserve." As Maya looked around the room at the faces of people who shared her mission, she realized she had accomplished something even more valuable than becoming a billionaire. She had created a family of choice, a community of purpose, and a legacy that would outlast any amount of money. The little girl who had been left behind had not just survived, she had thrived, and in doing so had helped millions of other people thrive too.